Procrastination is the thief of time is a mid-18th century proverbial English saying. It's generally accepted to be true by most people. But is it? Really? Does it actually steal your time, or are there some benefits? Well, let's put procrastination to the test and see if it really steals time, or if it can actually be a secret weapon for success in life. The concept of procrastination is one we're all familiar with. It's our constant struggle to get things done, and the subsequent guilt trip we take when we don't meet our own expectations. As history goes, for most of it, procrastination, or concepts similar to it, have been taken as a positive. Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech was famously written at the very last minute.
I have a dream that one day.
But, of course, he had plenty of time to think about it and brew on the ideas he wanted to bring across. The word procrastination seems to have a negative connotation, but the concept of taking your time to make a decision before taking any action has been around since the time of the ancient Greeks and Romans. They favoured the approach of thinking and applying philosophical ideas, but also saw human ambition as vicious and proposed a life of simplicity for everyone. Not sure we can accept that in the 21st century. Another example is the composition of Mozart's Don Giovanni Overture. Mozart wrote it at the very last minute and completed it at 7 a.m. on performance day, to the point where the musicians had to play it from sight from sheets where ink was still drying and without any rehearsal. Don Giovanni is extremely successful and considered one of Mozart's greatest achievements. So perhaps that in itself supports the idea of procrastination as potentially being useful. I think we can all relate to feeling overwhelmed by our to-do lists and projects we want to start, and the stress that comes with delaying tasks until the last minute or not even starting them at all. I know I've lost count of the number of times I've promised myself that I'll get up early to tackle a project, only to hit the snooze button and then spend the day binge-watching TV shows instead. The guilt that follows from a day like this is really awful. It's like I'm stuck in a never-ending cycle of procrastination and regrets. So here's the thing. What causes procrastination? The secret is simple, and it's not caused by laziness or a lack of motivation. It's stress, and what is happening is that you are relieving stress from the situation or project that is causing it in the first place. No different from drinking some alcohol or having a cigarette. But what if I told you that I have learnt quite a bit about procrastination, having gone through many situations in my life itself? In fact, I've even conducted experiments where I intentionally procrastinated on tasks just to see what would happen. I know it sounds really crazy, but hear me out. I wanted to see if procrastination was really the productivity killer everyone makes it out to be. So, I started by identifying a few tasks that I'd been putting off for weeks, and then I deliberately delayed working on them. I mean, I really went all out. I watched an entire season of my favourite TV show, played video games till the early hours of the morning, and even learned how to cook a new recipe. And you know what? It was amazing. I felt carefree, relaxed, and almost productive. Of course, there were moments when I felt guilty, when my anxiety spiked, and I wondered if I was making a huge mistake. But I stuck to my plan, and what I found was surprising. When I finally got around to working on those tasks, I was able to approach them with a clear head, a fresh perspective, and a sense of renewed energy. One moment in particular stood out to me. I was working on a writing project, and I'd been putting off the final edit for weeks. But when I finally sat down to do it, I realised that the delay had actually helped me to approach the task with a more critical eye. I was able to spot mistakes I would have otherwise overlooked, and the final result was way better than I could have ever hoped for. That moment was a game changer for me. It made me realise that procrastination isn't always the enemy of productivity. In fact, taking breaks, relaxing and recharging can sometimes be exactly what we need to come back to our tasks with renewed energy and focus. So what did I learn from my experiment? I learned that procrastination doesn't have to be the thief of time. It can actually be a secret weapon, a tool to help us approach our tasks with a clearer mind and a fresh perspective. To some extent, that is to be expected. But I also learnt that unless there was a real deadline for a task or a project, I was not motivated to start it or finish it. For those projects that were related to starting a new business for a new idea, for example, since there was no real submission deadline, chronic procrastination kicked in. This is related to our biology as a human being, of course. We are pre-programmed to not take risks at all, so anything that rocks that boat, we will try to avoid starting it and just not do it. Well, guess what? That builds up our stress in the first place, and that does not help us at all. So procrastination is a double-edged sword and can have benefits and detrimental effects. It's best to start tasks with the smallest possible micro-task and build momentum from there. It is sending the first email to someone for a coffee to discuss your idea, or just picking a name for the company to start. The momentum alone will push you forward quickly. If you've ever struggled with procrastination and have stories to share, I'd love to hear about your experiences in the comments below. And if you're looking for more tips on how to get things done well, be sure to check out the video on harnessing the positive effects of flow.